Hello friends, in this video we are going to discuss another very important topic from labor costing, idle time wage part 1. In this video we will discuss the definition, causes and classification of idle time, and in the part 2 of this video series you will have the treatment of idle time and the controlling measures of idle time. So let's start. What is idle time? Idle time is that part of time out of the total stay of a worker in the factory or workplace for which he is paid without doing any productive work. So it is that part of total stay of the worker in the factory for which he is getting the payment but he is not actually doing any production. That time is called idle time. So you can easily understand that idle time is a loss to the organization. Now you may tell me, sir, is there any case when a worker is paid but he is not doing any work actually? Yes, this is very much natural, because in case of tiffin, tea breaks, in case of preparation for any particular work, suppose when a worker is waiting for the instruction from his supervisor, these are some of the cases when idle time do happen in everyday life or everyday production process. So these are the time for which the organization is not getting any production but the organization is paying the worker for that particular time. So this part definitely should be identified properly. This idle time wage should be minimized as far as possible, because this increases cost without increasing production. Now from another point of view, we can say in case of time based system of wage payment, idle time is the difference between the total period of stay of a worker within the factory and his total period of involvement in different jobs or work. That means the time kept, his total period of stay in the factory is we can get from the time kept in the clock card or attendance register, and the time booked on different jobs. That means the worker has worked on different jobs, and as per the job card we have the time recorded. So the difference between the two will give you the idle time. For example, if total period of stay is 12 hours and if productive hour or time booked on different jobs is 10 hours, so 2 hours will be idle time. So if question comes in your examination, what is idle time, you can write from this particular slide what is idle time and give an example with the formula also. Next, what are the causes of idle time? According to the nature or source, causes of idle time are divided as follows: productive causes, administrative causes and economic causes. That means based on the nature or source, three heads of causes we have classified. Productive causes, those causes which are related to production directly or indirectly. That means those causes which create idle time, if they are related with the production process directly or indirectly, then the causes will be termed as productive causes of idle time. For example, time required by a worker for going to the respective department from the factory gate and coming back to the factory gate from the respective workplaces. Time needed for preparing to work after reaching the workplaces. Such time requirement is generally for change of dress, picking up tools, etc. Then time needed for taking direction from the departmental foreman or supervisor. Waiting time in between two consecutive jobs. Waiting time for material, tools, accessories, etc. Waiting time for warming up of machinery, etc. Then time needed to repair machinery in case of sudden breakdown. Resting time to be given to machines after continuous run for a long time. These are some of the causes which are related with production directly or indirectly. That means these are some of the causes for which the worker has to wait. The worker cannot work or does not work, but he gets the payment. Then another very much popular example is time required for taking tiffin or lunch by the worker. Now you may say, why lunch taking is productive time? Now actually in between production he is getting the lunch time or tiffin time. That is very much normal. As we cannot categorize it under administrative or economic causes, so it should be categorized under productive causes because it is somehow related with production process. Okay, so these are the causes which create idle time, which result in idle time, and the production does not increase but the wage will increases for this. Now the next category of causes are administrative causes. For example, that means the causes which somehow are related with the administration or management of the organization. For example, lack of proper production or work planning on the part of management, delay in direction, control or decision making process due to administrative inefficiency, etc. That means if the worker has to wait for getting instruction from a supervisor, if there is faulty work planning and the worker has to wait for getting the supply from the previous department, suppose it is a continuous process and process 2 workers have to wait for getting the supply from process 1 workers, in this case there is somehow missing coordination or some faulty planning. So these are also responsible for idle time, which are categorized under administrative causes. Okay, then next popular example is temporary strike or go slow or agitation by the workers due to management employee disputes. So if the administration or a management of people of the organization, they are not being able to manage the employer-employee relationship properly, then there will be worker or employee agitation or disputes. In that case, definitely the disputes will hamper work and the organization has to pay for that time, but the organization is not getting production, so it is also idle time under administrative causes. And the last category of causes are economic causes. Economic causes means somehow which is related to the economy as a whole. That means which is the origin of the cause is from outside the organization, not from within the organization. Okay, for example, if it is a seasonal industry, in that case in off season time there is fall in demand. If there is fall in demand, there will be adverse impact on production of the organization. And if my workers are permanent in nature, in that case the workers are not getting enough job to work throughout the day, but they are being paid. So due to fall in demand, that may be due to seasonal cause, that may be due to environmental factor, that may be due to government policy. So if there is trade recession or economic slowdown as a whole, in that case the demand falls and the production also falls, which are also the causes of idle time in some cases. So these are the 3 main categories of causes of idle time. Now, classification of idle time. How can you classify idle time? This is also very much important, because if you understand causes and classification properly, then only in the next video we will be able to understand properly the treatment of idle time, wage in cost accounting. So now let's start the classification of idle time. On the basis of nature or normality, we can classify idle time into 2 categories: normal idle time, abnormal idle times. And on the basis of controllability, we can classify idle time into 2 categories: controllable idle time, uncontrollable idle time. Now what is controllable idle time? Let us understand first controllable idle time. Controllable idle time is that part of total idle time which can be controlled, reduced or minimized due to adoption of some remedial measures taken by the management. So it can be minimized, control, if it cannot be eliminated, but it can be controlled at least. For example, if due to regular non-servicing of tools or machines, there is sudden breakdown of machines, it has become a regular feature. In that case, the workers have to wait, so that causes idle time. So this kind of idle time can be controlled to a large extent by improving the maintenance part. That means by regular maintenance we can reduce the number of breakdowns. So that cause of idle time, breakdown, if it is causes of idle time, in that case it is a controllable idle time. Okay. Now another controllable idle time example may be giving improper instruction to workers. If by proper work planning we can control idle time, that kind of idle time. So giving improper instruction to workers or faulty instruction to workers, if that causes idle time, or delay in giving instruction to workers, if that is the cause of idle time, then that is controllable definitely. Time loss due to machine breakdown, load shedding, lockout, cease work, strike, etc., lack of coordination, etc. That means if employer-employee relation can be improved, controllable idle time, this part of these reasons or these sources or these causes can be controlled to a large extent. So on the basis of controllability, one segment is called controllable idle time. Another part is called uncontrollable idle time, because all idle time, the entire portion cannot be made zero. Definitely it is not possible. Some part of idle time is there which cannot be controlled, reduced or minimized in spite of adoption of some remedial measures taken by the management. For example, time loss due to accident, decrease in production due to trade depression, unfavorable atmosphere, etc., decrease in demand due to government policy, change in government policy, etc. All these are not controllable by the organization itself. So these are dependent on some external factor which is not controllable by the organization only. So these are uncontrollable idle time. Clear? Now the another type of classification may be based on nature or normality of idle time. Idle time may be normal idle time, it may be abnormal idle time. Now this is only another angle of looking at idle time. Normal idle time means which arises from normal activities of the concern. That means which cannot be completely avoided. It is not from any abnormal reason. So which normal idle time is that part of idle time which arises from normal activities of the concern. Such idle time are partly controllable, partly uncontrollable. I repeat, that means we are focusing normal idle time again from the angle of controllability. So normal idle time are partly controllable, partly uncontrollable. For example, time lost for waiting for new work, this can be controlled. So time lost for waiting for new work, this is a source or cause of idle time which can be controlled. Why is it called normal? Because it arises from normal working or normal activities of the concern. It is not from any abnormal reason. It is not from accident. It is not from some major breakdown. It is from normal reason. The worker has to wait for getting instruction. That is one of the normal reasons of idle time. So it is called normal idle time. But definitely it is controllable. So normal idle time, some part is controllable, but some part is uncontrollable. For example, suppose the time needed for a worker to come from factory gate to workplace. This time, definitely this reason is a cause of normal idle time. But that cannot be made zero. You can reduce this, but that cannot be made zero. Time needed for preparing tools and machines, for arranging for work, time needed for warming up of the machine. These are normal idle time because the causes are from within the normal activities of the concern. So according to normality, it is called normal idle time. But these are uncontrollable in nature. So you can understand now that normal idle time can again be viewed from the point of view of controllability. Normal idle time can be controllable and uncontrollable. Please try to understand, because from in the next video we will try to focus on the treatment of idle time wage. In that case you will clearly see that this normal plus controllable, normal plus uncontrollable, this kind of understanding is very much needed, will be needed very much. Now what is last category? abnormal idle time. Abnormal idle time, the name suggests, as the name suggests, abnormal idle time means the idle time which arises from any abnormal situation or reason, or caused not due to any normal activity of the concern. Such idle time again are partly controllable, partly uncontrollable. For example, time loss due to heavy load shedding, time loss due to heavy load shedding. This is something which is abnormal in nature. It is not normal in nature. Time loss due to some accident, time loss due to lockout, strike, etc. These are not normal. This is not regular phenomena. Okay, time loss due to lack of demand due to abnormal atmosphere. But some reasons of the abnormal idle time can be controlled. For example, if there is load shedding, heavy load shedding, I can try to create some alternative arrangement for power supply. So that can be controlled to some extent. That is abnormal, but that can be controlled. Time loss due to accident. Now this part cannot be totally made zero, but definitely accidents can be controlled by taking precautionary measures. Lockout, time loss due to lockout. This is definitely abnormal idle time, but that can be controlled by improving labor management relationship. So on the basis of normality, the last classification was abnormal idle time. Abnormal idle time is also partly controllable, partly uncontrollable, like due to sudden fall in demand in the market, due to sudden change in due to sudden, suppose, natural calamity, the production process has stopped, the demand has fallen. In this case, these type of external factors are definitely sudden natural calamity. These are like flood, cyclone, etc. These are abnormal in nature because it causes idle time. I have to pay the workers, but the production has been stopped due to unnatural weather or risky weather. So this is abnormal, definitely idle time, plus this is uncontrollable in nature. So I hope you have understood the classification of idle time based on nature or normality, normal and abnormal. This also comes as a difference in exam. In exam, the questions are given frequently. What do you mean by normal idle time and abnormal idle time, or differentiate between normal idle time and abnormal idle time? And on the basis of controllability, we can classify idle time between controllable idle time and uncontrollable idle time. So if you want to understand or learn the treatment of idle time in cost accounting and the controlling measures of idle time, you must see our next video. Thank you very much.